Hi everyone, welcome. Here are the big takeaways from Chapter 13 on quasi-experiments. Like the meaning of that prefix quasi suggests, quasi-experiments are not really experiments, but are often proposed by the publishing author as experimental research, with the author strongly implying a cause and effect relationship between variables. You want to watch for this. In the future, when a researcher suggests a cause and effect relationship between variables, it is really your responsibility as a professional to detect when she or he has actually conducted a true experiment or not. Quasi-experiments refer collectively to any research studies that strongly imply cause and effect relationships, but are not true experiments by fulfilling the requirements of a true experiment. That is, it is not an experiment if the research design, number one, did not include assigning participants to comparative groups of the independent variable, or if there is no real control of extraneous variables before the experiment began. Correlational research that we've already studied this semester can be seen as a form of quasi-experimental research. So this chapter is not introducing a completely new concept. First takeaway from this chapter. Takeaway number one, the researcher cannot always investigate a topic using the desired strict rules of a true experiment, and that's okay. Correlational research is an example, right? There's lots of research in psychology that does not use a true experiment. They're just not trying to demonstrate cause and effect. Because of the nature of the variables psychologists like to investigate, the truth is the researcher cannot always design a true experiment. It's the most powerful, but you can't always design one. You tend to see quasi-experimental research designs in the following conditions. Number one, first, we cannot always randomly assign individuals to comparative groups of our independent variable. For example, psychologists often want to study social groups based upon already established characteristics, such as a particular ethnicity or educational level, or based upon certain already existing personal characteristics or past experiences that they've had. Second reason why you're likely to see quasi-experimental research. We tend to see this because we cannot always manipulate the independent variable and make those before and after comparisons. It would be nice if we can. We can't always do that. This is what's happening when psychologists investigate, for example, differences based upon gender, male versus female. But you as a reader do not want to be misled to think they're saying that gender causes any of the related variables. It's really only a correlation, even if the author strongly implies a cause and effect relationship. Finally, researchers can have difficulty incorporating control processes to eliminate the influence of extraneous variables. In correlational research, for example, control of extraneous variables can only occur if the data representing those extraneous variables exists and was collected in advance. And in correlational studies, control happens after the experiment is complete. So these features, remember, the features of a true experiment allow for a greater certainty of a cause and effect inference between variables, higher internal validity. And quasi-experimental designs always lack one or more of these features, and so therefore will always have lower internal validity. Second big takeaway from this chapter. Talk about qualitative research, also known as descriptive research. This exists to study new areas of research that are just starting out, new population groups, emerging disorders, and new experiences that psychologists have never seen before. In the history of psychological research, qualitative research has always been a precursor to experimental research or correlational research that we've spent most of the time studying this semester. Our focus this semester has been on quantitative research. As you've noticed, we study all variables in terms of reducing them to numbers. That is, you've noticed we always seek to quantify abstract mental and emotional processes as a means to measure their high, medium, and low levels of existence. This hypothesis testing approach, characteristic of quantitative research studies established areas of research like how do children learn, what are the most effective treatment techniques for a psychological disorder, what predictors make a stable marriage, things that we already know something about. Studying a new population group, an emerging disorder, or a new experience that psychologists have never seen before, we actually want to avoid that kind of a hypothesis-based approach because we do not know what assumptions, we do not want to make assumptions about what are the important features and relationships present in a completely new area of research. We don't know anything yet. Here, qualitative research is perfect. It starts with open questions. Tell us about this experience that shows acknowledgement of our ignorance, precisely because we do not know important variables. We do not know important features and relationships present in a completely new area of research because it's new. Qualitative research brings open-ended questions and an openness to discovery. We let the people involved or the people experiencing the new condition tell us or describe to us what factors are important. Know that this type of descriptive research exists, and we call it qualitative research as opposed to quantitative. And lastly, third takeaway here, let's talk about when to use quantitative research methods, numbers, and when to use qualitative research methods. Here's the rule. The research question dictates the research methods. The question dictates the methods. And so we reflect upon those goals of psychological research first discussed way back in chapter 1. We want to describe behavior, explain behavior, predict behavior, and control or change behavior. If a researcher is in the earliest stages of research in a particular area, it's new to us. We're often trying to describe and to offer preliminary explanations for it. Qualitative research methods are your better choice here in the earliest stages of research in a particular area. If one is in a more advanced stage of research in a particular area, that is, we already know something about the factors involved, the variables that we could explore. We're most often trying to confirm predictable relationships or control variables of interest. Describe, explain, predict, confirm, control. Control areas of interest by studying how they relate and interact with other known variables of interest. That sounds like quantitative research, doesn't it? Confirming predictable relationships. That's quantitative research that we've studied this semester. And yes, that's a better choice here in a more advanced stage of research in a particular area. So in summary, the big takeaways from chapter 13 on quasi-experiments are these. Number one, quasi-experiments refer collectively to any studies that strongly imply a cause and effect relationship but are not true experiments. Only an experiment can reveal true cause and effect. Number two, qualitative methods exist to study new areas of research. They're just starting out. New population groups, emerging disorders, new experiences. Qualitative research is actually a precursor. It comes before experimental research and correlational research. And lastly, qualitative research methods are your better choice if you're in the earliest stages of research in a particular area. Quantitative research is a better choice in more advanced stages of research. Those are the big takeaways, guys, from chapter 13 on quasi-experiments. Thank you, everyone.